Welcome to Being and Practice-Based Research, a channel about being, how musicians think and feel, and how practice-based, artistic and scholarly work goes out into the world. Today's guest on the channel is Wolf-Georg Zaddach. He's a professor of music production and songwriting at the Macromedia University in Berlin. This interview was recorded on December 13th, 2023. So the first question is, what drives you in your practice, and how do you engage with those ideas in your practice and in your research?
For me personally, it is something that's probably for everybody who is working in the field of artistic research or practice-based research, that I have two hearts in my chest, which is an artistic one and the researcher one, right? So I have a background in jazz guitar, study jazz guitar, and I'm a standard trained musicologist, so to say, with a PhD in musicology, very traditional. And I did a lot of research in a musicological sense, and continued as a professional musician, as a guitarist and songwriter and producer, in many different genres actually, but mainly in jazz and popular music. But for me, there are no genre boundaries. I'm also collaborating with contemporary art music composers and performers, and but having these two hearts in the chest means that this field of artistic research and practice-based research opens a completely new way of thinking and doing research in a way, right? I have a big interest in things in general. Like I want to understand things. I want to understand theories. Of course, when we're talking about music, I want to understand music theory or performance practices or music psychology and stuff like that. But it goes beyond music, of course, this kind of interest. And I could describe this as an inner urge. And this goes in both directions, as an artist and as a scholar, this kind of inner urge to understand aspects, but then also to express myself, and in a way also to process things I'm working on. But I found out that scholarly work, research work can be a form of processing aspects as well, right? So, and that's a really interesting thing. And I always felt a little limited when I did traditional musicology, limited to the aspect that it kind of excludes a certain form of knowledge that is not ratio, that is not logic, that is not discursive knowledge, right? And being a practitioner, a musician myself for many, many years, I always felt like there's something missing in a way. And I also felt like we have so much knowledge, even if we look beyond the Western gaze, maybe I can say, there's so much knowledge and knowledge traditions and knowledge production, which we cannot grasp with our Western concepts. So yeah, I felt there's something missing in a way. And artistic research and practice-based research opens this completely new field to me that has the potential, at least, to bridge these two worlds, maybe. I usually use some concepts or ideas to explain this more in depth, but one aspect is the concept of epistemic injustice by Miranda Fricker, which I really like because it talks so much about exclusion and boundaries or forms of including or excluding people from certain contexts, and it is applied to the university as well. And I think it really fits to say or to argue we are highly in the need of these new ways of thinking and doing. And this is an important aspect for artistic research and practice-based research, because we also need to take care that we don't fall beyond this new approach of epistemology. So I'm always arguing the word art in artistic research cannot refer to 19th century art concepts of high and low and stuff like that, you know? So we cannot fall back in to these old, very Western-centered concepts.
What does it mean to be a practitioner in your own body and in your own experience and in your own world?
As an artist researcher, I need to work on my craft as an artist. And this is something that, of course, continues, and this is important. For me, as a jazz and popular music musician and songwriter / composer, technology is also an important aspect. I mean, I'm working a lot in a DAW, in a digital audio workstation. I'm mixing, mastering stuff. I'm composing in the DAW, working with different sounds, recording my instruments, stuff like that. That means keeping up with all the developments, crafting the skills there as well, of course. That's very important. Yeah, and as a researcher, it's really important to keep up with the developments and to engage with the discourse on not just artistic research, but I'd say music research in general, and find connections there. I think this aspect of having a new field, as I said earlier, doesn't mean that we can forget about the other discourses. Actually, in fact, we need to take care that we connect well enough to the other discourses and not repeating something that's already been said, maybe. Or in finding out what is the new contribution that I can find out in my research. I need to be aware of what's actually out there already. I see that a lot in my students' work nowadays, that this kind of contextualization is lacking. I liked that you had a body in your question, because certainly the artistic research, practice-based research brings the body back into the focus in a way. Even if our artistic research work would focus on composing or so, the body is still involved heavily. And one of the big achievements of artistic research would be that we acknowledge our intuitive knowledge. With the body comes, for me, and this is something that I've found out over the years, to acknowledge also my limitations of perception. I want to give you a very simple example. My wife is a painter. She's painting, and so she's very well trained in differentiating colors. And I'm not a visual person at all. For me, this was illuminating in a way, because artistic research, and that's a critique on the field, tends to create a new version of a genius in a way, that we are great artists and great researchers at the same time, which also may sound quite neoliberal in a way. And I'm critical of that, actually. This aspect of acknowledging my own limitations led me to argue that collaboration is rather key for artistic research in order to overcome our individual limitations, and also to overcome all these old concepts of the genius, of the logic, ratio-dominated knowledge domains and all that. And one key to that is critical reflection. And this always is in the discourse on artistic research. We need to critically reflect. It's in most of the curriculums and most of the agendas of programs. But what does it actually really mean, critical reflection? It doesn't just mean to reflect on the practice you are doing. Like if I'm sitting on my guitar, and I'm working on a new technique on playing on the guitar, and this is my artistic research focus. My reflection is not just reflecting on what I'm doing and how I'm practicing and how I'm progressing with that also, or what the limitations there are. That's one part, but that's not it yet. It would continue to think even beyond that, to think about my own biography, to think about my limitations, my circumstances that led to the point where I'm doing this practice at the moment right now.
Yeah, really beautiful. I have 3 short responses, and I'm just very inspired right now. First of all, what you said about perception and how we as artistic researchers, some of us, look at the way we perceive things, and we see also our own limitations, and how, for example, in our teaching, this can be really beautiful, because sometimes as students, we're like, I'm not good enough, I'm bad, everything is bad. We have these stories in our heads. And then you ask your parents, how did they play today? Or you ask your friends, how was this for you? And then sometimes you're like, what? You didn't hear all the whatever happened? Like, things like that can be freeing, to let go of those very significant things we tell ourselves all the time, which at the end of the day are stories. And I just love the freedom that comes from what you say, to acknowledge the limitation of our perception. I'm really inspired by that. And then one quick response to what you said in one place was, some people who do artistic research, they say it should be only done in this particular way, and everything else is not the right way. Like this whole genius conversation, when we get hung up on this one particular ideal that something has to like check the boxes to be that highest possible ideal. Like I also find that really limiting. And in some places, there are very narrow definitions of what makes good artistic research. And so I agree with you that I love having a wider space. And so my third comment was in the last thing you said, to acknowledge context and space and the own biography. How is it that we became who we are, and that everything made us who we are right now? And so for me, it's like I have a great passion for Joseph Joachim, who's this white guy from the 19th century, Brahms's friend. Like these days, we are not really so passionate about white men who wrote music in the 19th century, because there are other things that are now more important at the moment. And so for me, I'm looking at that. He is like, in a way, the love of my life. He's dead, it's okay. I'm having this like posthumous relationship, complete obsession. Everything I do is Joseph Joachim. I love every note he wrote. I really like his handwriting. I love reading his letters. It's just like a very exotic thing. And so for me, everything I did in the last 10 years has to do with Joseph Joachim. And here I am having kind of like blended some sort of things from the past with myself, and they're in my body when I play. In any case, like when you said biography, I was like, yes, it's so nice to acknowledge context and biography and subjective things that made us who we are right now. So I am just very inspired with what you just brought to the discussion here. And I'm going to stop talking now in case you want to pick up anything. And if you don't, I'll have like a couple more ideas we can quickly discuss, but then I also honor your time, of course.
Just quickly, once again, about this limitation aspect, there's some kind of a paradox in artistic research that we as individuals are at the center of the research, and it is about our own perception and about our own ways of doing things. This is the core. The practice is the core of the research, right? So, and certainly, if I do artistic research, I want to explain why I do things the way I do, or so. So the paradox is that we put actually our skills, but also our limitations at the center of the research. And with the reference to critical reflection, I just wanted to make clear that we need to acknowledge that actually. We need to it's not about selling something. We are luckily not on a, we are on a market in a way, but we don't have to sell a product, right? So we rather should be honest with ourselves also and acknowledge our limitations, because in acknowledging the limitations, there's also potential for growth for us personally, but also for others when they learn from our research, right?
Yeah, beautiful. So what comes through for me is like a sense of community. That really great research is always in community. And earlier you said that sometimes students, they don't refer to the existing things that exist within artistic research or within musicology or within cultural studies, humanities, whatever. And I fully agree. It's nice to really make a context in which we exist in a community. And not everything is, our playing, our specific narrow little niche of research where we are active. Maybe I can ask you one more question that I find so interesting. What do you think about dissemination and the format. So like the format in which artistic research is brought to the public.
I mean, one of the big advantages is that we now can have non-linguistic presentations, non-linguistic forms or formats, like recordings or performances. Yeah, so the issue that comes is evaluating the works then. Right, if I just have a performance and I need to evaluate that for a PhD, it is critical. So there needs, ideally, and I've tried out many different things over the years, over at different institutions also, and through my different work, I see also different institutions and different programs. And my approach nowadays is that there needs to be a written part. So we have the practice dissemination, and we have a written part, which is a critical reflection, but also a form of contextualization, and just a complementary form. So we have a compound way. And I just always like to emphasize that we still should understand it as one final submission, so to say, because in Germany we have a long tradition of, and in parts of Europe also, of it's called, let me translate it, scientific artistic doctorate or whatever, right? So there's this division, scientific, artistic, right? So you do something, you just write something, whatever, but the main important aspect is the artistic, then mostly for the professors, and then that's it, right? And with artistic research, practice-based research, we move on, and we also want to take care more about the research aspects. Usually the artistic formats are pretty strong, but we also need to take care of the research aspects, and there often comes into play the written aspect. And that doesn't mean we cannot argue through art. I mean, it's Hank Borgdorf made this famous phrase of, I think it was artistic reasoning. So certainly that's possible, and also contextualization is possible through an artistic expression. But for programs and degrees, at least for this, we need a written part that is explaining that you did this on purpose. Right?
Yeah, fully agree. Absolutely agree. For teaching, that is very important. And at this point, I fully agree with everything you said. So lastly, and very importantly, I would love for you to tell the audience, where can we find out more about your work? What is there about you where you would like to point our attention? What would you like us to know about you?
Oh, well, what can I say? So there are, over the past years, I've written a few papers theorizing more about artistic research in particular fields as jazz, or like jazz and popular music. Since this is a necessity to integrate that more into these fields as well. I mean, I have two websites that we can also post in the description. There I have the distinction between a scholarly website and an artistic website, and there you can check out my different works, certainly. And yeah, I don't know what else to say at the moment.
Yeah, so maybe I will add that you are a central force in the Netzwerk für KÜFO, Künstlerische Forschung in Deutschland, and that you and Emily Buiken, and I'm not sure that, not Evelyn, sorry, Evelyn, and I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce her last name. Is it Buiken?
Buiken, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that you and Evelyn Buiken are really driving forward artistic research in Germany, and you're networking, and this is like a really cool initiative. I have followed it on email. I have yet to actually make a meeting. And so I look forward to being part of this network in my capacity as living in Germany part-time. And I love networking. This video channel is also partly born to do networking within Europe and to just kind of see what other people are up to. So this was super fascinating, Wolf, and I am very respectful of your time. And it was just really fun to speak with you, and I learned so much from you. Is there anything else for you there, or where are you at?
Right now, I can't think of anything else at the top of my head. I mean, you can tell I like to talk a lot about this and discuss aspects. And let me maybe just add a sentence about the aspect of being in artistic research and practice-based research, which is the title of your channel. I said at the beginning, I really like that as well, and want to get back to it. I like that a lot because it's focusing so much on doing something in the moment, being in the moment, and developing things, becoming, flourishing in a way, maybe also, right? And I think this is one of the most beautiful aspects of artistic research, that we can acknowledge and kind of like enjoy the being in artistic research or in practice-based research, and also at a certain point after a few years of doing this, look back and see the development and stuff like that. So I really like that aspect, which is I think also there's more beyond that, or there's more in it, like we are so much dealing with thinking about the past, being afraid of the future, planning things, thinking about our pensions or whatever. And I think I mean, this is maybe my kind of Buddhist background now, but I really like this being in the moment, and it's hard to explain in English, but appreciating the environmental space we're in. And maybe this is something we can add to what, maybe we can cut it in then the works I'm doing. One artistic research project I'm working on, besides all my jobs at the moment, and this is going on for many years now already, is about climate and biodiversity crisis, where I'm dealing with field recordings and composition in the studio with, heavy technology that requires a lot of resources from the earth, energy and whatever metals. Where I'm kind of reflecting on this and also on the urgency, and this topic I said earlier, I may also have this kind of urge to understand, but also to process. For me, this is an artistic research project that helps me to process actually the issues of climate and biodiversity crisis, since I started researching more on the scholarly side on this many years ago. And artistic research kind of helps me to process that, basically emotions that come with it.